Joe Biden gave a press conference yesterday and they talked about a number of different topics, including the future of Build Back Better, which doesn't have one. But hey, I like to play hypothetical games. Let's pretend that there's a path forward. You're not gonna like it. Here's Joe Biden.
It's clear to me that that we're gonna have to probably break it up. I think it's clear that we would be able to get support for the $500+ billion for energy and the environmental issues that are there. I know that the two people who've opposed, on the Democratic side at least, support a number of the things that are in there. For example, Joe Manchin strongly supports early education, 3 and 4 years of age. I think we can break the package up, get as much as we can now, and come back and fight for the rest later.
Okay, so they want to break it up and do multiple bills. Okay, so they can't all be through reconciliation because the Senate parliamentarian, who is literally more powerful than Thanos, will not allow that. They got one extra thing. It was supposed to be Build Back Better. So we're gonna break it into multiple things, Francesca, that can each individually be filibustered. He knows this, right? But Joe Manchin's really into some of this stuff. So surely Joe Manchin will sign on. And that brings us not an inch closer to breaking the filibuster on individual components of this that we weren't able to on some sort of big bill that cuts across all of the priorities. What was the point of what he just said there, other than to waste our time and frustrate leftists?
To frustrate not just leftists, but everyone. I think that even people who voted for Joe Biden enthusiastically instead of holding their nose and realizing it was the only option, understanding that like moderation and like centrism cannot cut it in a time of massive inequality, massive wage theft, and neo-fascism. It just will not do. And this is not the guy who's going to stop those things. He needs to do better than this. Number one, as you're saying, it is impossible to pass multiple reconciliation bills, so that's out of there. And then, in what world, in what Senate are any of the other proposals not going to be filibustered? That was the point of passing it through the Reconciliation Act. So listen, buddy, just abolish federal student debt. Just mobilize the National Defense Production Act to get people health care and home care and masks and tests more than the ones you just mobilize it so we can have hospital workers and nurses and address this crisis now. Just give us another check. Come on, do something, but you're not working through Congress. I'm sorry.
It's hashtag Biden do anything challenge. We've had it up for a long time. He's not going to. He was asked at that press conference about student loan debt, about his individual specific pledge to cancel $10,000, and he ignored the question. He didn't actually answer it, except that he kind of did, just not with words. We all understand where he's at. But they're gonna break it all into different pieces or whatever. And by the way, remember, they break it up into these different pieces and it has no chance of passing because it'll be filibustered. But again, remember, why does it need to be broken up? Not because of the filibuster. Well, sure, it would have been filibustered if they tried to pass it that way, but because Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, again, wouldn't pass it. Again.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read a few graphics from the New York Times. They're gonna be really frustrating because it reflects insanity in the part of Joe Biden and the New York Times. So they say, the sweeping climate change and social policy bill passed the House, but came to a halt last month when Joe Manchin, the West Virginia Democrat and swing vote in the Senate, said he opposed it. Okay, that's true. However, Mr. Manchin has suggested that he might back various climate provisions in the legislation, leading some Democrats to say the party should regroup around a climate bill. So again, it'll just be filibustered. And more importantly, of all of the individual parts of that bill that Joe Manchin would support, we're supposed to believe it's the climate stuff that he's gonna go for. They continue. That could mean jettisoning many of the childcare, healthcare, and tax reform provisions that are priorities for different segments of the Democratic coalition. We begin to understand why they're doing this. It's not about passing a little bit because it won't. It's about not even trying again to pass the bigger parts that he would never allow. So he will imply, hey, maybe there are some Republicans that'll sign on to like carbon capture or something. Well, the New York Times asked each of the 50 Senate Republicans if they would support just the climate provisions in Build Back Better if they were presented in a standalone bill. None said they would, not one, not two, certainly not 10. So again, this is a massive waste of our time. And in particular, it's because you're dealing with people like this. This is Senator Chuck Grassley I'm gonna read a quote about, but it could just as well be Joe Manchin. He refers to himself as the father of the wind energy production tax credit. He said he could support provisions in the bill that bolster wind and solar power, but is opposed to sections that would help make electric vehicles more affordable. That would hurt his state's ethanol industry. Yeah, it's hate to set the world on fire, but we can't damage Iowa's ethanol industry in the short term. By the way, none of the Republicans said that they felt we were facing a planetary emergency, which it's easy to not feel like you're facing if you just don't look up. Francesca, thoughts?
Well, I think, the real thing here is sort of what we talked about when we looked at how the news, mainstream media often reports on these, the Voting Rights Act, for example, or the Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill that failed in the Senate, which is the idea that this is just a points game. And that is how Republicans view this. Even if they believed in wind and solar, there is no world in which they're going to give Joe Biden a win on anything. Their tactic is the same as it was under Barack Obama, which is, completely like obstruct. That's it. That is their goal, and then get into power, and then pass more tax breaks for the rich. That's it, and it kind of works thanks to the filibuster. So we can't get anything done unless we get filibuster reform and or primary the hell out of these people and get them out, or do things by executive action. But we mistaken and we constantly report on these developments of who would do what and when, as if the Republican Party were operating in good faith, and they are not operating in good faith.
Yep, no. And if you ever somehow got 10 Republicans on something, which you literally never will, then some other Democratic senator would step up to tank the entire thing. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.